right. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, to Design Review Board, special Design Review Board meeting on April 2nd, 2024. To open the meeting, John, would you please call roll?
Christine Lovell.
Here.
Lynn Diedler.
Here.
Vice Chair Hanley.
Here.
Carrie Bush.
Here.
And Marshall Bell.
Here.
All right. We have 5 members present with Chair Langberg absent today. So we do have a quorum.
Excellent. All right. So first item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. We'll start with August 22nd, 2023. Do we have any comments on those meeting minutes? First, do we have a quorum for those who are present? Stupendous. Okay.
John, can you say who was present at each of the meetings that we're going to approve?
Yes. So for the August 22nd meeting, present was Vice Chair Hanley, Marshall Balfe, and Lynn Diedler. And then absent was Lars, Carrie, and Christine.
Great. Start with you, Lynn. Do you have any comments on the meeting minutes?
None.
Fantastic. Marshall, do you have any comments on the meeting minutes?
No.
Wonderful. I don't have any comments. Anyone like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of August
22nd.
22nd. Yeah.
I second
Terrific.
All right. Christine Lovell. You were absent. So
Yes,
just
abstain.
say abstain. Thank you. Lynn Diedler.
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley.
Aye.
Carrie Bush.
Abstain.
And Marshall Balfe.
it. Aye.
All right, so that motion passes with 3 ayes, 2 abstains, and 1 absent of Lars Langberg.
Excellent. Moving on to approval of meeting minutes from the meeting of March 26th of this year. John, can you remind us who was present?
Yes, so present for that was Chair Langberg, Vice Chair Hanley, Board Member Diedler, and Board Member Lovell. Absent was Board Member Bush and Board Member Marshall Balfe.
Excellent. Christine, any comments on the meeting minutes?
No comment.
Mr. Diedler?
Well, I have a comment. I thought the write-up on the minutes was just excellent. No other comments.
Very thorough. Excellent meeting minutes. Any comments from this end of the table on the meeting minutes? No. Excellent. Wonderful. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
Fantastic. Do we have a second?
I can't. I wasn't there.
You weren't there. You can't second. Mr. Diedler, could you?
I second the motion.
Wonderful.
All right, so we'll call a vote. Christine Lovell,
A.
Lynn Diedler,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
Carrie Bush,
Abstain.
and Marshall Balfe.
Abstain.
All right, so that motion passes with 3 ayes, 2 abstentions, and 1 absent.
Wonderful. All right, so we're moving on to comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. As a reminder, the 845 Gravenstein Highway North project is on our agenda, so we'll hear public comments about that project during that item, during that agenda item. So now is a great time to hear from people about items not on the agenda.
And I will note that we didn't receive any comments for items not on today's agenda.
Okay, great. Anybody in the Zoom world, if you could just raise your hand or make yourself known to us, we'll unmute you. Seeing none, seeing nobody in the room, I think we're good to move on. All right, statements of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest with this project before us today?
No.
All right, seeing none, I think we're okay to move on to the regular agenda.
Sure. So this is the design review application for St. Vincent de Paul at 845 Gravenstein Highway North. This project is for a 1-story residential housing development. The project proposes to create 22 residential units of affordable housing on a 0.95 acre site. The project is located within the general commercial zoning district which permits 100% affordable housing projects in compliance with the Sebastopol Municipal Code. Therefore, this project is only subject to design review. For a little bit of background on this project, the Design Review Board did review a preliminary review from this project in December of 2023, where the applicant brought forth a proposal to seek out design changes and modifications to the site. Some of those notes were building modifications. There was a request to save 2 heritage oak trees at the south end of the property, which borders the property line to the neighbor to the south. The site has recently been fenced and has been the site of the safe parking RV village that Sonoma Applied Village Services has been operating under a temporary use permit for the last 2 years. With that, they are ending the lease term on that site. So the project before you is a permanent housing development site. The project does propose additional parking on the site in excess of a couple parking spaces. So if the board wants to discuss additional reduction in parking, I believe there's 2 or 3 parking spaces available to remove. However, they also are only required to provide 5 bicycle parking stations, and the proposal includes 24 bicycle parking stations on site. In this proposal, the project does provide a layout of the landscaping. That was something that was not included as part of the preliminary review, but it is as part of this formal review. So with that, I do want to add in the conditions of approval. Number 1, there is a text change that needs to happen there. And for the record, I'll read it in. It says, plans and elevations shall be in substantial conformance with plans prepared by Jones Architecture and stamped received on March 21st, 2024, and on file with the City of Sebastopol Planning Department. That should be plans prepared by Geflin Architecture, not Jones Architecture. So I just wanted to make that note before we move forward. And with that, I will conclude the staff report. I am available for any questions, and then from there we do have a the applicant is here to answer any questions you may have for them.
Great. So let's start with questions for staff. Maybe we can start with you, Christine, and move our way down the table.
I don't have any questions at this moment.
Okay, great.
No.
No questions for staff. I was not able to attend the December meeting. Has the revised submittal addressed all of the comments that were made during the December meeting?
Yes, the revised submission did include some more modifications. There was a couple. There's 2 entrances now into the site from the street, 116 side, where there was only 1 kind of thoroughfare before. That was one of the options that the board came up with to provide some additional airflow through the site and better wayfinding. And there was some consideration and talk about moving the trash enclosure towards the front of the site. Unfortunately, the way the design kind of worked out, it's just not amenable, and it's easier for the trash haulers to access it through the back of the site. So
Okay.
that was kind of the one change that was requested by the board, but unfortunately it's not as feasible as possible.
Okay. Has there been any public safety input from Sebastopol PD about defensible space, access, eyes on street?
They haven't provided anything additional from any of the conditions of approval.
Okay.
So
I know they have had some feedback on other projects in town. I just was
Yeah.
wondering if they had any thoughts about this one as well.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, great. I think those are my questions for staff at this point. Carrie?
I was curious, based on the parking requirements for the 27 stalls required, I saw that about 22 in the rear. Were there additional parking stalls up front along the Gravenstein Highway that allowed for additional parking?
Yeah, there is some street parking on
Okay.
the front side there.
Okay. Great. And then, so I'm catching up on this project as well. Has any discussion been given to zoning allowances based on increased density?
So this project falls right at the allowable units. So in the staff report, the minimum allowed units would be 11.49 and the maximum would be 23.74. So at 22 units, they're right at kind of the high end allowed for that project without using any state density bonus waivers or anything like that. But I'll turn to Carrie and see if she has anything additional to provide in that
Yeah, no, John is correct. It is within the density. They're obviously the smaller studio units, so they count as a 0.5 density in terms of our code, which puts them well within the density area. State density bonus does allow for basically doubling the number of units, and they are not asking to do that.
I'm sorry, I did have one other question. There's a note in the analysis that there are mature oak trees on the adjacent property to the south, also in county jurisdiction, which may be considered property tree lines, and the impacts to those trees should be considered at the drive aisle. Are we asking the applicant to make any special accommodations for those trees?
So that was part of the discussion from the first review. There were in that corner where the buffer is now
Mhm.
on the project plan set, there were 2 additional parking spaces there that they did remove
Okay,
as kind of a result of that discussion from the first go around. So
I see the 2 heritage trees at the
Yeah.
southeast corner are maintained, but the additional property line ones, is there anything else for those specifically, or is it just sort of an awareness?
just an awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. On the north side of the project, are those on the site plan? I don't see trees along that side, but on some of the other drawings, there are trees. So I'm just curious if there are existing trees there, along there. Does anybody know?
Is that in the corner edge of the parking?
Well,
The north side as you're looking at the site, or the north as
north side by
in-
by the liquor store. There's a drawing here.
Mhm.
Let's see. Picture here. Oh, this picture. That sheet shows trees all along the north side of the project near the liquor store. And on this elevation, this building elevation here, which is the rear, it shows trees along near the liquor store there on that side. But the site plan, this one, doesn't show trees. This one doesn't show trees. And this one doesn't show trees, so I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. And I'm just asking the question, are there
There are existing trees there.
There are, okay.
I might defer to the applicant, but I believe that some of those trees might be outside of the property line, so
Uh-huh.
they're not listed on this
Oh,
site
okay.
plan per se, but they are still
Okay,
there.
well, if they're existing, that's fine. I'm just asking.
I had one more question, apologies.
No, it is. In the main landscaping drawing, it does not show any trees on the west side of the building.
Okay, we'll ask the applicant about that when we get them up here. In the environmental review and staff analysis, it refers to one modest-sized building. I'm seeing multiple buildings. Are we considering it one building for the sake of analysis? Second paragraph, about 2/3 down.
Yeah, I see that section, but I do understand where you're coming from. I believe that might have been part of the first submittal because it had the majority of them connected together or somewhat connected together. So
Should we consider it as one singular building?
no.
It affects the interpretation of the design guidelines for material variation across the facade. That's why I ask.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it would be it would be 4 separate buildings.
Okay.
With the 2 inner ones, and then the 2 longer ones on the outside.
Intuitively, that's how it
Yeah.
renders. Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for staff?
What?
We're all good. All right, let's carry on. All right, so I think we move on now to a presentation by the project applicant.
Go right. Yeah, please. I'm not sure if she's.
Thank you. I'm Lucy Gelfand.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm Lisa Gelfand, and I guess John. I'm thinking that it's the attachment on the staff report.
Okay. Do you want to just All right, we'll bring that up in just one
So
second.
just responding to some of the other questions, as far as we're concerned, we haven't removed trees. We're going to protect the trees that are on the 3 sides around it. And, you know, the good trees that are in that corner, we've stepped away from. Even if there is trash back there, it will not impede the trees, and it'll be accessible from the back of the buildings. So I guess our thought here is that We'd like to get the most housing we can there for in an affordable, livable way. And so in a way, there's a little bit of a heritage of the bungalow court that that we've had all over California, small homes, and they're accessed off the interior courtyard. And we feel like that, particularly since we're not going to be building a community building or something else for this scale of project, that making sure that that community of homes has a place to be together is important to us. We think that even though it's a little out of town, that people will be walking there. And so we've made an effort to make the pedestrian entrance something that, again, will be visible and welcoming to folks coming home. And it also, that's what's in that tower form. And that also has where the mail will be. And we sort of expanded it. So again, so that's the place, the interior place that people might come on a daily basis and see each other, if they come outside. So that's kind of the idea. And then again, to try to make this as affordable as we can, these units are designed to be quite repetitive. And they also have, I think the board asked in the last meeting about what we were going to do to handle HVAC. And so now what we've done is you can see there sort of the slots between the darker roofs, and that's where the gable will end for each group of units. And we'll have a gable end there where we can put the outdoor unit of a split system. So that'll be up. That will not be taking up landscape room. We want to have 22 little suitcases around the place, and it means that each unit has its own. It's basically a motel unit, but it's its own HVAC. It's affordable. It's controllable by that individual unit. I think from a standpoint of design, if we go on to the plans, you can see that there's a sort of core of kitchenette and bathroom, and that all is back to back and concentrates all the services. And then it also means that everybody's living space has two orientations. So we'll have windows front and back, cross ventilation, and so we felt like just being able to keep all the machines out of the way is nice for maximizing the amount of space that we're able to provide. So materials, if we just keep going through, you can see that we're definitely wanting to use planting where we can, and then as we look at the last slide, the siding is a hardy plank, and we'll use it both horizontally and vertically. And can't afford hardy, which seems difficult to imagine. There are knockoff options. And then I think we also wanted to call out everybody's entrance. So that's what the yellow is. That's the awning over the doors that go into each of the homes. So when you're in the courtyard, a little bit like what we're trying to do on the street, we're trying to call out the individuality of the particular units, and so you'll be able to see your door, and then at the street we've put a trellis out there that I think is rendered without any plants on it, but hopefully we'll have some plants on it that survive. And otherwise, I think we're really looking for something that's domestic in scale, that's safe, that's welcoming, and that where the pieces add up to something a little bit more than what the little pieces are. That for instance, that interior courtyard felt like a really good way to get community space without having to build it. So I'm ready for questions.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Do we have questions? Yes.
You know, it's really hard to see any detail in the particular drawings or the material that was forwarded to us. So it's in regards to some questions about that. Are all the doors and windows trimmed?
Yes.
So they have a trim strip on them. And are the corners of the building trimmed?
Yes.
With
How? Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about Hardy and how there's a cover board, and it's like a by 4 cover board that we'll use
at the corner?
at the corners.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's also like we showed a variation you can see in the plans or in the elevations where it goes from a vertical to the horizontal. There's a little piece of Z flashing that goes over that transition.
Yeah. Do you have a name for the project yet?
So my office named it, and I took it off because I figured that was something that the sponsor should be able to do. We've been calling it 845 Gravenstein.
Yeah, so Mr. Dealer, I can respond to that. The project, Jack Tibbetts, St. Vincent de Paul, the project owner, has been calling it Gravenstein Commons.
And if that's what we're calling it, then there will be a sign. So, yeah.
Just to comment about the name is there's about 4 other commons names already in the town. So,
Well, you know, I think we should convey that back to the owner. And I'll just put in a little editorial opinion. Don't make it a manor. Just
yeah. Okay.
no manners.
So that's all the questions.
Well, one thought in my mind, you said there's awnings over the front doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's awnings over the front doors. What are they going to look like? How big are they going to be?
Oh, you know, I didn't know how the technology was going to work out. I wish I could put a model on.
Lisa, if you want to join the Zoom call, or if you want to email those.
Okay.
It's up to
You
you.
know what I could do is I could ask my folks who are on the Zoom call, Larry, Cami, can you can you show the SketchUp model that shows the interior of the courtyard with the awnings and the shade structure?
I can. Let me give me a second to pull it up.
Okay. Thank you, Larry.
And all the doors, the front doors are going to be the same? Are they going to be painted different colors or?
You know, I think painting them could be a thing. And I think one of the issues is that, you know, most of these products are going to come pre-finished. And so
They're gonna
come pre-finished.
okay.
And I think, so you're right. It's a decision we should make up front.
Mhm.
And then, you know, as opposed to, I mean, sometimes I like to just say that a resident could pick a color, but I think at this point, we're going to say that these are going to come pre-finished.
Mhm.
At this point, we're showing them as one color.
Yeah, I have a few questions. Thanks. I'm trying to understand the site design a little bit better and some of the detail that just isn't quite clear with the plans. For example, the finished floor heights. I'm trying to understand, especially when it comes just for example, the floor plan. It looks like you have like little boxes around the foundation plantings around the home. And I'm just curious, you're going to be siding clearances and those sort of things to make a flush or a zero transition to each unit? How does that?
Yeah, I mean, we do have enough. One of the things that the planting buffer allows us to do is to raise the floor enough so that we don't have water draining into the units. We're going to be ADA, so it would seem flush, because what we used to be able to do, which was put a decent sill in, we can't do. So we will take advantage of the planted buffer to raise the finished floor height
Okay.
enough to drain.
And a grading plan would clearly identify
Oh, yes.
these sort of conditions. Yes.
Yes.
I'm almost a little bit concerned about how that would actually work with regards to each threshold and the distance that's from that main path of travel.
Right.
It's just building out and there's required landings and it doesn't.
It's not going to be more than a few than the percent. And,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I think we'll do our best to get to take advantage of that space to get the water out.
So as another water kind of issue, the no net water runoff policy would require there be detention, probably some on-site storage. Is there any consideration for where that will be?
We've got a lot of planting, so we're aware of the requirement. There's an area as we said, we put a big bike corral in there, and so back by the bikes, there's a good place.
There's a lot of roof
Yes.
included to this plan. There's
Yes.
a lot of roof runoff.
Yes.
Okay, so civil calculations will accommodate for that
Yes.
hydrologic
Yes.
charge. Okay. Main utilities coming to and fro municipal, just for example, Gravenstein Highway. Do you have an idea where the point of connection is to all the utilities that are coming and going to the site? For example, where would backflows be? Where would the meters be? Where would the primary utilities come and go to?
So what? Yeah, the tower structure.
Yep.
We figured that's where there will be meters and anything else that requires access of that sort.
I should have asked this to the staff, but would there be a condition for orchard plantings for surface parking lots? For example, every fifth stall would have to have a bulb out in order to accommodate the surface of the heat island and or the gray field?
John, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to take it?
Go ahead, Carrie.
Sure. Okay, so we do have minimum, for certain size parking lots, we do have a minimum landscape requirement. I can check real quick our code to see if that would apply to a parking lot this size. But it is something that as part of your design review, you can require of the project. You would want to add that as a specific condition of. But I'll look up what our code zoning ordinance requirement is for that, and I'll let you know in a sec.
Thanks. That's good for now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes.
The canopies showed up over there.
Yeah, they did. So, hey, Larry, could you zoom in a little bit on the quad? So what you can see are the sort of rectangles projecting above the doors.
I saw something bigger though.
Yes, the bigger thing is the sort of kidney thing. That's a shade structure. And that's just something that would be part of developing the courtyard as part of where people might hang out. Again, because we're not building a building.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned different doors or different colors or whatever, different designs.
Yeah.
If all the awnings are the same, that might be a successful thing to do and fun to do, and everyone would appreciate it. I don't know that we should make it a requirement, but it would add something to the project. And if the awnings were all different, I would say the doors have to all be the same, but it'd be more fun this way, I think.
Oh,
It's just a thought.
okay. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I think we'll look into that.
Christine, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Yes, lots. I feel like in general, these plans are really lacking in detail. Like I'm looking at the landscape plan, but is there some kind of a plan that shows any dimensions? Like a site plan with dimensions?
Larry, could we show the landscape plan? We've got the survey in there for the just overall dimensions on the site. And I think Larry's going to bring that up. He's my partner. He's also a landscape architect.
Well, like I'll start with one of the things I'm going to start with is the so-called south elevation. No, sorry. The so-called east elevation. I think, first of all, you've got your north arrow at an angle, so you don't really have any true southwest, east, north elevation. So I'm just going to reference north, maybe up Gravenstein Highway. But I think that your east elevation is possibly your north or northwest elevation. But that's the property line that doesn't have any trees. So when you look at the landscape plan, I don't see any trees. And then when I look at the elevation, I see a bunch of trees. And to be honest with you, I find these trees to be really distracting because they're covering up the building. So like on the west side of which would be the sort of reference north elevation, you can't see like the whole building where that tower is covered up with this tree, which doesn't appear to exist based on the landscape plan. So my concern from a design point of view is that, with the public view coming up the street is that what's in reality on that elevation is a long blank continuous wall. And it's covered up by these trees that I'm not sure, based on these drawings, these trees exist.
Those would be new trees, the ones on the street, yes.
But they're not shown on the landscape plan. And on the landscape plan, you've got a bunch of plants in these boxes listed, but I can't tell where, what goes where. So there's inconsistency. And like even in the courtyard, there appears to be a tree, but on your Zoom or your SketchUp, there's no tree. So, I mean, this is just a general reflection of what I'm seeing is just a complete lack of detail to present to us. And it's consistent throughout, like the parking on the landscape plan, all I could do was take a scale, and these things allegedly had these scales, but they're not any known scale on these sheets of paper, and I don't have any dimension, so I can't even scale them. But like those parking stalls in the back, there appear to be less backup distance than there is length of stall. And then the thing is with these trees on all these elevations, I mean, they look really pretty and they're pretty colors, but that's not really the elevations of the buildings. And like in the back of the building, which would be the west elevation, I don't know what you're calling it here, but I mean, that's just going to be in the parking lot. That's just going to be basically big blank wall all the way across. It looks like there's all these trees, but you'd have to go on the other person's property and look over the fence to see that elevation. Meanwhile, the trees are, I guess you're calling it the west. Yeah, what I would call the east elevation.
Also, all the trees are only 24-inch boxes at 8
West
feet.
elevation. You're calling it the west elevation. So if you're standing in the parking lot, you're not going to see those trees. So basically what I'm saying is you can't see the elevations of the buildings on these drawings. They're covered up by these trees. I mean, I can't think of a better word to use, but it's kind of deceptive because you can't see the elevations. So, I mean, I would like to see the elevations of the buildings as they stand alone with some dimension. Like, I don't know how tall that tower is, and I can't scale these drawings because I don't have any scale on them. And then more specifically, questions that I have are, like we've got the heat pump units are in those little slots there, but there's supposed to be mentioned somewhere some sort of screening, but we don't have any detail on what that screening is. We've got the front trellis. I mean, it's a trellis, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know what the materials are, how it's constructed, what it's made out of. The awnings over the doors, I have no idea what those are. I can't tell from this. And then we've got the bike racks. I have no idea what that is. That's just some little lines drawn on the corner of the drawing. But I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea. And then there seems to be something in the back on some of these elevations where we're preserving the trees. Some of these elevations have something sort of very lightly in the back there. Like there's a fence, or is that supposed to be a trash enclosure? Or I don't know what that is, because then we've got the trash enclosure noted on the floor plans. And it seems to be that there's 6 individual trash receptacles that for all those units. I mean, I just don't know. I'm just looking at this, and then are they going to drag them up to the front? Or is there some sort of dumpster? Is that supposed to be?
The truck is supposed to come back there. We're actually having conversations with Recology. So the truck getting back there and being able to turn around is the idea.
Well, see, again, like you look at this, you've got that green planting spot that sort of sticks out parallel to the parking spaces, and to like kind of turn around in there.
Yeah.
Like
now,
you can't tell what that is, but that's a backup space or less in width. I mean, I just can't tell from these drawings what's going on, because there's no dimensions, and they're just lacking in detail completely from my point of view. And the trees that are shown on the elevations, they don't seem to match these. All I can look at are just the circles. Like, I don't know what on these lists, what goes where, because that's not called out anywhere. So
I guess we would see that as very likely going to happen in the next phase in our construction documents that go in for the building permit. And I think, for example, we've been trying to get a hold of the exact person at Recology to talk about the turning radius on their truck. So we're in that conversation, and the intent is certainly that the truck will be able to get back there, turn around. We'll talk about things with them and the applicant and the owner about how often. I think the hope is that the trash receptacles are accessible for people who live here from the inside without having to go out the front door or out around any enclosure, and so that's why it feels to us to be a better location. So yeah, I think we've been encouraged to look at whether we're overparked and could, if we had to, could expand the trash area, for example. But I think from the point of view of where you could help us on that is just to say, okay, you agree that we're overparked, and that's something that would be feasible for the project for us to do, and that I think. As we do develop the landscape plans further and get into CDs on it, we'll locate where every plant goes, and what the planting idea is. I think the intent here was to sort of try to communicate what our intent is in terms of using the building mass to continue to be very much on a construction 2-foot on center module that allow us to do this efficiently, and then to tackle the details once we've got approvals.
But again, and I appreciate your saying that, but like in terms of the 2-foot module, how could you tell from looking at these drawings? Because there's an overall dimension, but
Yeah,
and then like with the trash enclosure thing, like what I'm interested in. So is there something supposed to happen in that back corner where we're preserving the trees? Because something shows up on these elevations. You can see it lightly. There's something back there. Like I'm looking at it right here.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something back there, or is that open, or?
It's open. It's.
So that's not a trash enclosure. The only trash enclosure is the trash enclosure that you're showing there with the 6 cans.
It's next to the building, yes.
So what, okay, so again, in getting back to detail, getting back, like, there's nothing here that tells you what that material is or what it's going to look like. I mean, I just feel like these plans are preliminary, like this should be a preliminary discussion. Because there's no detail on what's happening here. What does the trellis look like? What is it made out of? What are the awnings? What are they made out of? What is the trash enclosure? What's that material made out of? What are the bike racks? The trees are inconsistent. Where are there really trees? Like on that, what I would call the north elevation, that looks like that's just a blank wall. I don't see any trees represented on the landscape plan. So I don't know how real this is in terms of the trees, and the trees are blocking the building, so I can't see what the building looks like anyway.
Well, I think we should, I think your points are taken. Let's give her a chance to give some feedback to that. And let's keep this questions, and our discussion can be about the quality of the submission.
I share a lot of the same concerns. I have a lot of the same concerns that were just expressed by Christine, that I spent a lot of time going back and forth in these drawings and trying to sort northeast from northwest and the whole thing. My biggest concern is, what will it look like as far as the siding goes, the elevation goes? I would really like to see the finished elevations on this project.
Okay. This is maybe my bad. I think we have some what look like construction documents to me of what the elevations look like. Larry, can you find those? Your Revit drawings? And, that are basically construction drawings, and they've got height, and they show you where the vertical and horizontal changes occur. I think as a way of finding out what the feel of the project is, they didn't seem to me to convey that. They seem to convey how high is it, where's the eave, where's the change of materials, and so on. So I think I'll ask my team to come up with that.
Just, I'm going into the files.
Thanks, Larry. So it's, I think on the, I think Larry went to look at the city preferences on species and things like that for the planting, and we will follow that. That's definitely what was the basis of the planning that he was doing. And again, what I would normally do for planning or in other places is to show what we're talking about. It's this high, not by species, but that will obviously be part of our submission for a building permit.
Christine, do you have any? Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
Can you see this?
Yeah, it's tiny.
Yeah.
That's helpful. So yeah, I think we're looking for the change in texture and scale on the sure, yeah, on the facades to help us with that. I think that this kind of project and the budget constraints that we're under, we're not going to be going in and out a lot. So we were looking at orientation of the materials to give us some punch, and I think that kind of detailing is what we're going to be able to do. I think the corner boards show, you should. The module is 12 feet. That's what it is in terms of scale. So the whole thing's sort of 12 by 48, and each slot. And that's, again, very consistent throughout the project. The whole idea that we have for being able to get this thing to meet the affordability requirements is to make it so that the merchant builder just can get in there and make it happen.
You know, you mentioned submitting this to the building department for a plan, but the building department, to get your building permit, doesn't look at design. They look at structural integrity and the materials that are being used, you know, the plumbing, the electrical, what's kind of inside, and the core of the building that you don't see. And we're kind of the outside that you do see.
Right. Well, yeah, and I'm like, I apologize, we didn't get far enough into the details on that.
When you go back to, if you could go back to that elevation that you just showed. See, on those, don't we have like little flat spaces for the units, or am I seeing this
We
wrong?
do. This was a drawing that was done previous to the addition of the slots for the HVAC. I think this was presented in December, and that's what precipitated the addition of the slots.
So Larry, why don't you just indicate on there where, use the PDF thing and just indicate where those slots would occur? Because they're right on the module. So.
Yes.
Thank you. So it's another example of kind of what we are trying to do strategically, is to make sure that if we do add some articulation to the building, it's in the rhythm of the constructible part of it, so that we really can make this affordable. And it's a very important part of the project.
Any other questions for our applicant on this end of the table? No? Okay. First of all, I just would like to compliment you on a really efficient site plan. I think you're getting a lot out of a very little, and the consideration of cubic inches is really clear in this project, and I just would like to applaud that. I think it's very nicely done in the site plan level. Lisa, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the genesis of this clock tower. Where did this come from?
It came from how important the highway is, and sort of wanting to make more of it, as in terms of where we, that it has a face, and it faces the street, and that the clock tower is at the entrance that a pedestrian would use. So there'd be a gate, for the driveway, so people can't just drive in there, and there'd be a gate at the clock tower. But for pedestrians, you want to have it be a little bit, different scale. And so we wanted to do that. And we're not building, as I said, a community building. The part of the economy of the project is to use these standard pre-manufactured trusses. So we've got just 2 in the project. So the buildings, by turning the building around, we have the exact same unit, but we have the trusses in the opposite dimensions. So that's what gives us a little bit higher ridge on the front. And it also gave us the slope to continue for the tower. So so I think, what we're doing is, in the language of the project, we're trying to make a statement about where do you come in, and are we a part of this community? Yes, we are. We're not like hiding behind the trees. And I think that is something that you could see as you're coming up and down the highway was also sort of important. It's a little bit of a sign. And I think when we first got asked to look at this project, it was as a 2-story building. That's what the previous group had done. And we did not believe that we could afford that in this scenario. So the way that we could afford a project here was to get a 1-story building, but it did lose some of its oomph on the street. So I think that was what we're going for.
You mentioned the sign. Do you have a concept for that developed yet, or what are you thinking?
We're I'd like to get the sign more sort of more on the pedestrian side of things than on the driveway.
Mhm.
So the sort of idea of doing a driveway monument sign out at it seems to emphasize the driveway. So I'd rather have something back at the building.
Okay, I like that thinking. I like that thinking. The tower will, it'll be, how can I say this, real important as a landmark, and tell people where it is. Can you, I know these are concept drawings or preliminary drawings, and I appreciate that. The clock on the tower looked underdone to me. It's an opportunity. The overall look of this is very, very, well, it's very nice, but it's very subtle and safe, and nothing is jumping out to offend anybody. The tower is, even though it jumps, it's doing something that's integrated to the design, and it's safe. It could maybe use some pizzazz somehow. Maybe you could take another look at that. It could either be in the clock, or it could be on three sides, or I don't know. But I'm just thinking it's an opportunity, and it's just too plain. That's my thought. And I don't pretend to know.
Let's make sure we're keeping this time
pretend to
for
know. I don't pretend to
questions.
know the answer.
Okay, well, thank you. And I mean, can I ask a question of you guys? If we were to look at that tower as a public art opportunity, would that be?
That's an idea. That's
Well,
an
with that-
idea.
Something I think worthy of conversation, but I want to make sure we stick to our agenda. That this is the time for questions for the applicant. Then we'll have an opportunity and we'll make sure that we're giving singular feedback to the applicant. So she leaves here with a directive. And
Well, and I'll just pass on a little bit of my experience. We do a lot of affordable housing, and deeply affordable housing like this, and I've had that chance to sit down with a lot of residents and just say, well, what do you guys want?
Yeah.
And they say, well, we just want to live here. We want to live in the community like everybody else. So in a way, though this is a public statement and a public statement of the values of the community, it's a home. And so the sort of impulse to make it more attention gathering than other residential places is something that we struggle with, because this is, we do want people to feel welcome at home and live in their community. And that is a pretty strong message that I've gotten from residents of communities like this. And I think that that's one reason why sometimes we are a little restrained about it. And I feel like it's up to members of the community to figure out what they'd like to say, once the residents are identified. I think we're giving them some opportunities, in terms of, for instance, the tower, if they want to, the gateway that will be I mean, to me, there's going to be a gate under the trellis. I could easily imagine that as being something that, instead of just putting some picket fence in there, that, we're able to get something close up and tangible in terms of a wrought iron, But again, that would be something that gets worked out with, I would hope, actually, the owner and the residents.
thank you for that. All right. Are there any other questions for our applicant?
One more.
Please.
So I was just curious, from a cost analysis or a perspective of, has any consideration been given to just one single structure that houses this level of, residents? versus a real spread out kind of commons or bungalow courtyard?
We did start at a two-story structure, and the two-story structure was seriously more expensive in terms of the fire exiting, the elevators, the elevator, but still the exiting systems, the centralized systems, and even in interior circulation. So by putting it out on the site at this scale, we think that yes, there's a little extra concrete, but in terms of the slab, but we're not building a floor, and we have no extra circulation space. We have nothing that's enclosed that isn't serving the residents. And so at this, even if we had done we were required to have a community open space. So if we had done a single project, and we did look at double loaded corridor kind of a situation that gives people only the windows on the outside, we wouldn't have been able to do it in one building, or we'd end up with more of the sort of like the old time schools, the finger schools, sort of a row, and that doesn't make for that, in our mind, didn't make for the kind of defined space that the courtyard offers. So to us, the courtyard offers a way to do community space without building it, and to make the most, I think, of the exterior of the outdoor space that we are going to be able to get, because everybody shares it in a way that they wouldn't if we had rows, or that they wouldn't if it was just a backyard to a two-story building.
All right, I have some questions. So Larry, this one might be for you. I saw on the elevation that you had up there, we have the horizontal hardy. It was at 6 inches, and there was no dimension for the vertical hardy. Are we doing a variety of install or a variety of plank width?
Let me bring that up again.
Okay, thank you. What is the material of the parking lot?
The asphalt.
Just asphalt? Okay.
Yeah.
Is there an idea that the trim colors, Lynn mentioned this earlier about trim around windows, trim around the corners, will that be all monochrome to match the face of the building, or are we going to articulate that with a different color?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was whether we're going to paint or use a different colored trim around windows and doors than we are in the body of the building. I think our original drawings, in fact, you saw some of them, actually did contrast the color of the horizontal and the vertical hardy plank, and that's something that I might feel more comfortable with than having sort of squares around the windows and doors, because I think that at least relates to the unit. It relates to sort of the size of the home that you're thinking about, is how we were varying the trim.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you are right that these are reasonably preliminary. I think that as the project becomes, is fully funded and we're able to, get going, then we look forward to working some of that out. But I think our design intent is that that each home is something that is sort of visible for a resident, and that they know when they're getting there.
Yeah.
And that they're all seen as contributing to that community.
Sure. What about the materiality? Well, Larry, do we have an answer about the variation of plank?
So, I mean, this is all contingent on cost, but yeah, the horizontal could be like shiplap siding by Hardy, and then we could turn it vertically in the vertical sections and reduce. You can reduce the exposure of the board, so you can get a narrower a narrower
I mean,
exposure.
you wouldn't do a
And
shiplap,
or we
though.
could do, or in the vertical sense, we could do we could do board and batten, which we've done at other projects with the Hardy. So you have the shiplap on the bottom and then board and batten on top. But this is all, you know, contingent on cost. But there are a lot of variations that you can get from this product.
I mean, I think that's something that wasn't clear to me in the renderings. And when you mentioned it, Lisa, I got a little excited about that. We
Yeah.
are going to see some variation in these facades, and it's part of our, you know, design guidelines in Sebastopol is that we do see, if not the push and pull, which I completely understand your budget implications, at least some material change, finish change, something that gives us a bit of texture. You know, specifically along Gravenstein Highway, I'm concerned that this project is really turning its back to the public sphere. And I understand the need to create privacy and an enclosure and the sense of encampment for the folks who live here. But I think we're doing a disservice to the public sphere, and where we could be more celebratory.
Okay. Okay. So I think, you know, where I would like to take that is to make more of the entry space. I guess it was really felt important to me that residents, for security and for the feeling of the community, that they get to their particular home from the inside.
Sure.
You know, not walking in from the sidewalk. So I don't want to have like townhouse situation where we're facing the road, because I don't want to have it be something where somebody can enter somebody's unit and go through into and be in the whole
Totally. Yeah.
area. So if we're so my feeling would be, you know, let me take a real look at the trellis in the tower area and make more of a statement there.
I think I'm most concerned about like the end units that are facing, especially at the entry where we've just got a big blank facade. If there's something that can be articulated there, perhaps from a landscape perspective, it's additional. I used to work for an architect early in my career that called it building jewelry, which, like, you know, not so great, but that's the reference we can use.
Okay. All right.
And I get, again, cost, I totally get it. But I just wish that we were making a bit more of an overture to the
I don't
public.
see any reason why I can't have windows there.
Okay, sweet.
I absolutely can do windows. I mean, that'll be a really desirable place to live.
It'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question of staff? How are we getting around the requirements for public or private outdoor space on a per unit basis?
It's private or public. It's so those
Either or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have
They're well over.
No, there's tons. Yeah. Okay, great.
I think they provide almost triple what's required. So
I'd love to have more information about gates and fencing. I think that's going to be a real differentiator to make sure this doesn't feel prison-like and like locked in, so that it does feel safe and secure, but not penitentiary. And I think the clock tower is giving me a bit guard tower vibe. And also is referencing some really bad Santa Rosa architecture, in my opinion. So we can talk about that. Might be a personal thing. And then the final thing that I'd really love to see explored a bit more. You know, this project is supposed to be accessible. It's ADA. You know, trash is one of those unglamorous parts of daily life, and being able to access it if you have a walker or if you are in a wheelchair graciously is something that I think we should really consider in this project. Like,
okay.
Restrooms, kitchens, trash, those are universal truths of daily life, and making that
Well, the restrooms, one reason why that core is so big is that all of that is
they're nice.
That's 100% accessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I also feel like one of the sort of, we don't talk about quite enough. I think we're all following rules about ADA, but, you know, we'll expect folks to age in place.
Totally.
And so I think that whether it's a walker, as you mentioned, or a wheelchair, it's all about having that space and ability to navigate.
Yeah.
So I think we'll hope to get that.
Great. All right. I think we've done a lot of questions. Keep me honest, John, go back to the agenda. Do we ask for feedback from the public, or do we go to just, okay,
public
great.
comment and then further discussion.
Lisa, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. All right, so let's open this up to comments from the public about items on the agenda. Don't be shy, we won't bite.
No? Okay. None in the room. Is there anyone? I think everybody on the call is part of our applicant team. So, and John, did we have any other comments?
No.
No, we had no public comments. All right, we have no public comment. So I think we'll move back to the board and let's have a conversation. Get in there. Sure, why not?
Okay. Can you pass this out to Lisa? I've got a lot of things that are hard to express verbally, so I've showed you all my notes and scribbles in this. But anyway, fundamentally, I like this project. I think it's for all the social reasons that you mentioned. I think it's fine. I think it'll look fine down there. But there's a lot of finishing details that I think need to be improved or added to make it, and details that won't really cost much, you know. And I think, you know, you got a $5 million budget, and you know, if you use half of 1% of that budget, you could that up quite a bit. But so let me kind of go through my concerns. Okay. You know, the thing that hits me right off is I can't think of a more depressing color than kind of semi-dark gray of that building, and kind of mustard yellow. I would really like to see paint take that and make it look alive, like it's an interesting place, a happening place that where you're, and I like the idea of the doors being different colors. I think that's probably better than the awnings. I think it gives a little bit of identity, just a touch of it. And so, anyway, the way you treat the presentation to the community, I think is got to be improved in this, and not in an expensive way, but you know, it's maybe you got your two end walls on the outside units that go back toward the back of the lot, and I says, you know, put a panel in there that is good for a mural, and do a, you know, maybe you don't paint that mural right away, but eventually you'll find some happy, cheery thing to put up there that fits what you do. That's one suggestion. I really like the idea of a clock there, but that's about as blah as you could get on a clock. And so I kind of second the comments made earlier. Yeah. Yeah. And on that, yeah, you know, I've actually just designed a few clocks, but and big clocks, but on the second page, I just, you know, I have my first scribble there of what to do with that clock face, and you know, trim it, give it some character. That one kind of looks like a compass, but use a little tile, stainless steel, some aluminum, something, you know, various surfaces to make it an interesting clock. Otherwise, that little sketch there is the same clock, but with a little bit of frou-frou. The other big concern is the way you're going to panel it. You know, what I could barely decipher from the drawings and the emails that I got as far as the paneling that you're going to put on this to kind of break up the single kind of paneling really needs work. There are proportions and ways to do that that are attractive and unattractive. And I think that one is somewhere in between from what I could discern. But if you just work on that a little bit until you find something interesting, it'll come, but it still needs work. Then I have a lot of comments on the landscaping. And if you look at that first page that I handed out to you, okay, the overall character of this project is boxy and angular all the way through, and the landscaping too. If you look at the buildings, the sidewalk, everything is at right angles, and it needs softening where people don't walk at right angles, like they don't, walk down the sidewalk, but they're going to shortcut across that lawn. Those nice little round circle around the lawn, how many people you think will walk on that compared to that walk around there? And, it's just, it's decorative, but kind of a waste of money as I see it. And so I would encourage you to leave it mostly a planting area. And you can walk on grass, you have 4 benches there with a lot of concrete around them, how many people like sitting in a bench kind of thing? Not really. But if you have like big redwood logs around the tree or somewhere instead of a bench, it invites sitting on it more than a formal kind of chair there. And, you can go to Sturgeon's Mill and get them all for free, and they'll give you bark on, bark off, and maybe cut a flat spot on it for you. So if you are going to put a bench in, if it's totally in the open, it feels open and not as comfortable as a bench that's tucked in some landscaping that is nestled somewhere compared to just there's a bench kind of thing. And so, I say at least knock it down to 2 benches if you're going to have benches, and then give it some environment with your landscaping. So those are a couple of things. The other thing is, you see some arc lines in between the entries to the doors on this drawing. It's like, again, try to break up that endless square angular feel of your plaza area and round off the corners. Doesn't cost much more. And if you get rid of that circle, you can more than pay for that. So moving on to one more thing is the trellis that you have shown here looks overly simplistic to me. If it's supposed to kind of shade someone in a bench sitting out in front, it make it sort of into a real shade structure. Make it a little richer. The sun isn't always straight over you either. So make it wider and more gracious, just 18 inches on each side kind of thing. And there's a little sketch in there of, okay, where are you going to put your name, your address, your sign? Okay, up on top of that trellis is a suggestion, and make the sign and the background a few boards that connect to the trellis to make it look like one. It's like a well thought out whole. So anyway, for now, I'm going to leave it at that.
Overall, I like this project. I want to give it a nod, but I just don't know what it is because there's no detail. And I think that needs to be added so that we can understand what it is. Thank you, Melissa. I've given the clock tower a new name, the Siege Tower.
The siege tower.
The Siege Tower. So, but anyway, I'm just going to give an example, like the trellis, that giant trellis. I mean, what that is going to depend on, that's going to affect how it's going to look over long term. What is the wood? Is it wood treated? You know, what are the connections? Because if it doesn't done right, it's going to look pretty bad very quickly, especially with the quality of wood that we have right now. We've got, we have a new architectural design that I call building featuring heat pump unit. And we see those all over the place. And that we have on our Gravenstein Highway elevation, we have building featuring heat pump unit. So I think there was some discussion about some sort of screening or something with that, but I could be wrong. But I'd like to see some detail about that. And, you know, I could just walk around the whole building. What are these bike racks besides 24 little short lines drawn on a piece of paper? What do they look like? I have no idea. These awnings over the doors, are they wood? Are they fabric? Are they metal? I have no idea. The trees, you know, disturb me because I can't tell what the trees are or where they're going to be. And I mean, I could just go on and on. Like I said, I'd like the project and I'd like to approve the project, but what are we approving based on this? I feel like we need more detail. And I would, having designed many, many buildings to completion in my career, I would suggest that, you know, and I know you know this, but it's the design phase and working out these things that really tell you what it's going to be. So if you haven't thought about it, you really don't know. And I don't know if you've done that or not. Obviously, the elevations that you pulled up were from some prior iteration. They weren't from this building because they didn't show the spaces in between the buildings. So, you know, what in the back of the building, in the back corner of the building, the elevations seem to show that there's something back there, a fence, or that's why I was wondering, was it a trash enclosure? You can see it on the elevations. In the tree preservation area, I have no idea what that is. The trash enclosure, is that concrete block? I don't know what that is. And Melissa did make me think, although this is maybe outside the purview a little bit, about you know, a physically challenged person getting in and out of there. It could be. But see, the thing is, again, I don't know what the dimension is because there's no dimension, like between the can and the wall. Is that 3 feet?
But it's, I think, you know, we are really.
So anyway, but long story short about this project, I would really like to approve this project, but I need something to approve. And I feel like I don't have enough information. Otherwise, I have to say, like the courtyard aspect. I think that's a good design concept.
What do you think about the color? Because that was something that was raised earlier.
Darn it. I like the color.
I like the color too.
And I think it would look really good if the trim was all one color.
Oh, you want to keep it monochrome across
Yeah.
the whole thing?
But I think that you could do something interesting, which is hard to tell from this, with orienting the siding differently.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe from a cost way, maybe one side this way, one side that way, or one unit this way, one unit that way.
Yeah.
but I think you can do a lot with this. I have a house that I worked on up on Dry Creek that was this color with the all one color. And I thought it looked really good. And so then I went to paint my house and I do everything myself. So I realized that that's a huge cost savings, not to do the trim a different color.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's a way you can really save cost.
And this is a standard color from Hardy too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, like the ways that you can save money, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's the cost of things. I mean, I'm working with a think tank right now on why are things so expensive? And it's everywhere you turn, you got to be dialing that down if you're going to afford the project. And I really appreciate that.
Well, I mean, at like roughly a little over 8,000 square feet, you're like $625 a foot in a $5 million project, which like, if you can do it, man, I really hope you can.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But these types of things, I think, like with the painting is one way you could save money. So I guess basically what I'm
integral
saying is I
color.
want to approve this project, but I need to have something to approve.
Well, I appreciate Lynn's comments because, frankly, we can change some of that landscape stuff for a lot less
Mhm.
than if we have to, if we get into the structure of the buildings. The structure of the buildings is rigid and repetitive for a very good reason.
Sure.
And I think we can really, we can vary the texture that we can do. And I think we can be loose.
Well, let's give an example of that. Like on I'm calling it the north elevation. You called it I think, east elevation. This is a perfect example. You're showing these trees down on the, what would be the west side of that, but that's nothing like that shown on the landscape plan. So what am I approving? Because I'd like to approve this. So when you come up the street, you can see these nice. Well, but this is what I'm saying. What I'm trying to, I think I'm getting my point across is I'd like to approve it, but I need something to approve that's consistent and has some dimension. I mean, I don't even know how tall the siege tower is.
Are you pro siege tower or anti siege tower?
Oh, I love siege towers.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
However you get your kicks. Okay.
But the thing is, like, they need to be able to go up there and look and see who's coming, right? So the siege tower needs a window.
All right. Medium focus on the siege tower. Let's talk about this side of the table. Carrie, you want to get us going?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to sort of echo a lot of those comments. I like the project. I think there's really good components to it. I think it responds to the site pretty well. We're looking at guidelines. So if I went through all the guidelines that I just kind of simply broke out, it has neighborhood context. The building and orientations make sense. It has circulation, parking to the rear. The pedestrian circulation, in particular, the pedestrian circulation is what I have a little bit of an issue with. First thing that comes to me is the public realm. It doesn't really respond, I think, to the public realm quite the way you'd mentioned earlier. You really want to be pedestrian accessible. I don't see that. I see gates. I see it. Are we keeping people in? Are we keeping people out? That sort of thing. And I don't know that it really responds to the urban moment. I think it feels very. So I think it doesn't quite respond to the urban moment like I would like to see. And I don't know what I want to see, but I'm just thinking that it feels very dressed in plantings that pretty much hide it in a lot of ways. And again, we don't have the detail that we don't see. We don't see a planting plan, right? We don't see a planting plan. We see plants, but we don't see a planting plan and how they're actually arranged and how they actually create form in space in possibly a garden or a landscape. That's something we just don't have. So to say that I could approve this, I cannot. But to see more details that really respond to the site and how it really wants to respond to some of the cues that you've almost arranged for me are almost there. I would like to say, don't frou-frou things up. Don't soften corners. Don't float spinach around your buildings. That's what's going to cost you money. And I'll tell you right now, if you're going to try to meet some level of even insurance qualifications now, you got to get stuff off your building. They won't let you have anything within 5 foot of a building now. I mean, we can conform to OE standards all day long, but when you get to an insurance arrangement, you're not going to be able to put anything combustible within 5 foot from a home. So that's why I was asking you about siting clearances early. So I think when you walk through a gate, what you see is a really long, narrow corridor, and it just doesn't terminate to anything. It actually terminates to a parking lot, which is pretty much, for me, a big missed opportunity from a site development standpoint. So I think having boxes and squares are going to save you money. You're not going to want to soften corners because that only frou-frous it out even more. And you're trying to hold your forms pure and simple. And that's what's going to save you money. Keeping the color a certain standard is a great idea. And I like the color myself. I think it responds well to your overarching simplicity. And the simplicity is what makes great space, and creates great form and design. All the things that we're here to look at and approve is to really respond to what you as the artist and the professional have to offer, not what we are suggesting. So I'm going to respond to you as the artist. And when I see what you've presented, we have a project, but we don't have the detail. And I'm asking more about site design because I'm a landscape architect, and I'm always curious about where your backflows are going to be. How are you going to access trash? Where are your meters? You're going to have how many meters on this site? How are you going to get to them? Where are you going to have those big fat cushions that drop over those backflow preventers? They're going to be there somewhere. And if they're in the clock tower, well, you're walking in a clock tower and you're not getting your mail, you're getting backflow preventers. So this is the reality of projects. And that's coming from a civil engineer, or there's just a lot of detail, again, we just don't see. Walls, fences, materiality, wood, like was mentioned, it could look terrible fast. And without the detail, there's no way I would prove this. And I want you to know that I want to, because I respect the project. Architecture, the massing, the differential pushing and pulling and changing materials, and the articulation from one material to the next and how it plays off of, those are great. Those are your tools, right? As an architect, those are your tools. And we would love to see that articulated. And so I'm here to promote that. Last but not least, if I wanted to just jump into the planting for a half a second, it would just basically be simplify your palette. That's how you're going to keep it. You got to wet areas. And if you're going to wet them in a simple way, like create landscapes, not big, complex gardens where you have to provide water needs for little tidbits and frou-frou things, right? Make it drama. The courtyard, the simplicity of the courtyard is what excites me probably most than anything, not to fuss it up and round corners. To me, I don't like that. So I'd just keep it simple and pure and make it a statement. The tower itself, I mean, I can't help but think of something like a ghost tower, McKay Lyons might have, and it's a light box and it has its own abstract form. The idea of keep you guessing, to me, is what excites me, not to make it literal. And so the plants, again, I just think you can't have a Quercus rubra October glory. That's actually not a species. That's an Acer rubrum October glory. Liquid down bars, which are sweet gums, they'll just blow out everything. Everything you put there will be basically in shatters in a couple of years because they just heave everything. We as a board consistently see tree removal plans that are coming before us because the wrong tree is in the wrong place. So if you can simplify the idea of simplify your planting palette, will save you money. And I'm thinking again, just egress in and out of those doors. I mean, having a long path of travel along each unit and then have each door respond to a soft space is that visual reaction that would maybe play more nod to bigger swaths of green than just little tidbits and chopped up places of green. Because you're going to have to wet those. You have chases everywhere. You're going to have irrigation valve boxes everywhere. Again, no detail, but it's the reality. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry.
Thank you. Marshall.
Boy.
All right, before Marshall, you said you're okay with the color. What about the tower? You mentioned the McKay Lyons reference. Are you pro tower, anti tower?
Well, I think it's a great punctuator, and I like the tower. I like the notion of something really kind of defining the entry. That's what you're going to want for that pedestrian moment, but don't shrub it up.
Don't shrub it up. Okay, thank you.
Well, all right. I've done a lot of apartment projects, and there's so much I could say, but one thing that I've seen in recent years that I really like, and you mentioned this, is smaller projects that you might have 15, 18, 20 little bungalows around a common space and a common community room, and you create community there that way. And I've actually approved quite a few of those. And with you, I really appreciate the fact that you don't have a lot of money to spend. And I don't want us to imply that you should do the kind of architectural plans that a person would have to do for a very expensive apartment project. The ideas and concepts and keeping things simple at the same time, I think, is important. You could spend a lifetime working on these plans, and that's not appropriate, because I want to see affordable housing, and I've worked on a lot of ADUs, and I understand this. So with the comments made here, I agree with 1,000%. When you walk in the entrances in the front, you shouldn't look through to see cars like an apartment or a motel building or whatever. You could do something down there visually, I think, to mitigate that. And in the center, what's done in the middle is important and doesn't have to be expensive. I personally, if I were living here, it's hard unless you'll get to know everyone, and maybe what I'm saying is nonsense. But if you're going to meet people and interact with people, I don't know that this looks too formal to me. That you might take a second look at that design in terms of it looks like it's just too formal. And I like the idea of the monochromatic color scheme. I like that. It's simple, it's fast, it's easy. If you get the right color, it's magic. It'll be good. These straight shots, I don't care for, where you come in the gate and it's just straight. Those could meander or have a different arrangement, and I think it might be better. It reminds me of a motel. And I don't want you to spend a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. So anyway, those are comments that come to mind. And lighting is a wonderful thing outside, the way you do the lighting. And I know you don't have a lot of money, but if you could do something magical there, cheap, that would be great. I see things all the time that I go, I wish I'd thought of that. So anyway, I hate to ask people to come back again and again and again. I hate that. I'm a major force for expediting projects, getting approvals, and only like in this, if we know your intention, which we do, and if we make a lot of suggestions, if we could trust that you would do some of that and that we would love it, we could just get on with this. I like expediting, but I don't know if we can do that. I just don't know.
Thank you. I know we don't have a huge amount of time left. Getting the look. I think I would echo my fellow board members' feedback. I really wanted to come in with a yes today, and I guess before we end, where are you on the color and where are you on the tower?
Oh, I like the color, and I've already commented on the tower. openings or windows would be a possible solution, but I'm not going to try to tell you what to do. If you wanted to make it like a tower on a castle, you would need slots and interior angles for firing the arrows in different directions.
I think we've talked a lot about turrets on this board, and I think we're not pro turret on this board. All right, thank you. I just want to make sure we have some kind of consensus to give to our applicant, so you're not spinning your wheels.
I had just one more comment. if
Yes,
you don't
please.
mind. So regarding the bicycle parking, we have a lot of bicycle parking, and it seems like it would be desirable in this location because you've got the bike trail and stuff. So I'm wondering, they don't have anywhere to put their bikes besides that bicycle parking, so it maybe wants to be covered. I can't tell from this if that's the intent, but so I just wanted to make that
I
comment.
think it's a good comment. My feelings on this are that I would agree that the color I think is terrific. It references a really positive bank building just up the street that I think this board was pretty unanimously excited about from a design perspective. I would love to see perhaps some more accuracy on the trees and the renderings. I think we've got like 25-year-old trees in these renderings, and they're coming in 24-inch boxes that are 8 feet tall. We're also the tree board, so we are kind of about trees. So we want to make sure we're being accurate with that. I'd also like to offer, and I think this is okay, you tell me if this is not okay. My office isn't far from your office in San Francisco. I'm happy to spend an hour with you and kind of go through some of the things that might be helpful. Okay, great. Well, I think
I'll have to check.
okay. He'll get back to me, make sure we're not breaking the rules. But yeah, I think I would agree with Marshall that, we want to get you to a yes ASAP. We need these units in Sebastopol. We want this project to be greenlit. We need a little bit more information around some of these key materials and transitions. Cool. Sweet. And then
No, not at all.
we're going to get our wrist slapped later.
Yeah.
And then I'll just go on the record. I don't know if it's just triggering me as a child of the 80s, but the clock tower is really bothering me. I'm cool with some kind of moment, but I'd rather spend the money on like secure covered bike parking or some other element that just is a little more useful. I'm a little concerned about the scale, especially I see my little humans in my elevation here, and this thing has got to be like 35 feet tall or something, 32. It's huge. So I think as an anchor for a site on the driveway, and I think on the highway there, and the auto scale and the speed that people drive on at 116, I like it as a landmark. If this were a public location, if this was a destination, I could totally buy that. For a home, I'd love to see this be a little more of the pedestrian scale, a little more of the human scale. Yeah, those are my comments about the siege tower.
I have an additional comment about the siege tower.
Please.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement. I think that I was joking around about the siege tower, but I think that having some element there is very useful, but I think something much scaled down would be appropriate for that. But something distinctive that says this is the entry, I think is a good idea.
Yeah, something there. And then my only last little bit, and we talked a little bit about this, especially those end units that are just kind of the blank facades along this street. The city has just greenlit some really wonderful plans for the development of the north end of town and changing our design standards. There's a new overlay district. We have new objective design standards that really look at this. Our hope is that this becomes a much more pedestrian friendly end of town instead of sort of like this, back 40 that it is right now. So seeing this as a potential gateway project to that new pedestrian experience could be really exciting. This could really start some momentum. We just approved a project last week, actually, at Design Review for the building across the street, which is the veterinary hospital, is getting a whole new facade. And so there's energy at this end of town. And I think this could be a really exciting project to help propel maybe other people into creating new things there. All right. Anything else before we make a motion? Okay. John?
Are you looking for what your
What-
motion should be?
Yeah. What,
Okay. Yeah, so it would be a continuation. It
Okay.
sounds like I would recommend that we select a date certain,
okay.
if possible. I'm not sure if the next board meeting would work or if that would give you guys enough time to do those drawings. It would be April 23rd.
Okay. That's quick.
Okay. And we do have one other, so depending on the outcome of the canopy project tonight, that is also scheduled for April 23rd. So I don't know
That's
if
a
we would
lot.
have, I mean, I want to recognize that, we have two kind of large projects, and scheduling both of those on.
I mean, that's going to be a lot to do in one night.
Yeah, the only comment that I do have about that is that I think, from my perspective, if she was to come back with some detail, it really wouldn't take that long.
Okay.
I mean, we've talked about this. That's my feeling about it. She has a good concept, and, we just need something specific to approve.
From my point of view, just getting sort of an endorsement of the direction is really important for us, because then we're happy to go ahead and start detailing it out. The grant has time limits, and so we
Okay.
have to break ground this year. So getting permit, getting a contract, blah, blah, blah. So,
Okay.
but I feel like I can keep going. So, and come back with the information that you want, and the sooner the better.
Great. Then let's do it. Let's do the 23rd.
Okay. So then I would include that in your motion to continue it to the April 23rd design review board meeting.
Do I have a motion, Christine?
I can give it a go. So my motion is to continue the project with the understanding that she's going to come back with more detailed information on things we talked about specifically, and we'll address it on the 23rd of April.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll be glad to second that.
Okay.
Terrific.
And we'll call the vote. Christine Lovell,
Aye.
Lynn Diedler,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hanley,
Aye.
Carrie Bush.
Yeah.
And Marshall Bell.
Aye.
All right. So that motion passes 5 ayes and 1 absent of Chair Lingberg. So Lisa, we will see you in a few weeks.
Great.
Yeah, thank you
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate your effort here. I really do.
Square peg?
The project has to thread a needle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually feel quite confident that what we do will be in addition to the highway, to the scale that we're developing on that part of town, and certainly for the people who live there.
Great. Thank you very much. Great. Okay. So since we just met last week, John, are you fine not providing planning department update on matters of general interest, or do you have anything new to update us on?
We don't really have anything new. Just to update Carrie from last time, we did start a discussion on the possible consolidation of the DRB and Planning Commission, as was directed to staff from the City Council at their last meeting. We did get some initial feedback from the group. Carrie, if you'd like to send me any of your thoughts. Council has asked us to provide them kind of with an update from the various boards that are projected to be affected by these changes. So that's about it as far as planning department stuff goes. As I mentioned, the canopy entitlements and CEQA certification are happening in about 45 minutes. So that project, if approved, would come back to the DRB at that April 23rd meeting for their final review.
Great.
I'll
Has
call it at
the bunya tree been noticed?
It has
in-
not been placed on a council agenda yet.
Okay.
With the various things that are going on, council agendas are pretty tight, so
I'd imagine.
it's on the pending list for right now.
Okay, great. Excellent. And I think all members of the subcommittee are not with us this evening, so no subcommittee updates. And with that, I move to adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Recording stopped.